Good morning. Did you just say good morning to me?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
I said good morning to your photo. Okay. All right, we have a quorum. Leah started the recording. So I never know when to do this, but I'd like to open this meeting of the Coastal Resilience Advisory Committee, March 26, 2024 at 10 a.m. We are convening in open session via Zoom. I'm calling us to order, and I will well, let's see, I guess I do that afterwards. Okay, so I will read the script for remotely conducted open meeting. Good morning. This open meeting of the Coastal Resilience Advisory Committee is convening by video conference pursuant to Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2023. All supporting materials that have provided members of this body are available on the town's website unless otherwise noted. This meeting is being recorded. Please be aware that other people may be able to see you, and take care not to share your device's screen. Anything that you broadcast may be captured by the recording. Please silence all phones and devices. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by law. This meeting will feature public comment. For items with public comment, after members have spoken, the chair will afford 3 minutes of public comment to those members of the public that have joined the meeting via Zoom. Members of the public who wish to speak must state their names and be acknowledged by and speak through the chair. Use the raise the hand feature in Zoom found under reactions at the bottom of your screen to indicate that you'd like to offer a comment. The chair will call on those who have raised their hands in the order they were raised. All questions should be directed through the chair. If you're not able to participate in the remote meeting, you may also submit comments to the Coastal Resilience Coordinator, Leah Hill, and request that they be read into the meeting record. Her email is lhill@nantucket-mass-ma.gov. Confirming member access. I am Peter Brace, Chair of the Coastal Resilience Advisory Committee. Permit me to confirm that all members and persons anticipated on the agenda are present and can hear me. Members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Okay. Doug Rose.
Aye, here.
Gary Beller.
Here.
Jen Carberg.
Here.
Rachel Freeman.
Here.
Sarah Boyce.
Here.
Okay. You're deciding whether you're here or okay. Christy Chickham.
Here.
Okay. Staff, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Leah Hill.
Here.
Okay. No anticipated speakers. Finally, each vote taken in the meeting will be conducted by roll call vote. Okay. So we've kind of changed up the agenda a bit, putting some of the business of the committee at the top so we can make sure we have quorum to get that stuff done. And then we've tried to not stack the agenda with too much stuff, so that we don't run over and we keep you guys from lunch. So public comment, as I stated in the script, those who would like to make a comment could have 3 minutes to do it. The comments have to be on a subject that is not on the agenda for today. So is there any public comment? Go ahead, RJ.
Thank you, Chair Brace. RJ Turcotte on behalf of the Nantucket Land and Water Council. I don't know how many of you had a chance to watch last Thursday night's Conservation Commission meeting, but they discussed the regulation updates again. And I am just commenting to you guys today to recommend and urge you guys to support the commission again. I know that you'd have to send any sort of support letter you wrote to the select board first, but just a recap of that meeting on Thursday, they received a lot of pushback again from basically the same squeaky wheels who were talking at the previous meetings over the same things. They're sort of starting to run in circles. There is one change to those regulatory updates that's relevant to crack, and that is something that a consultant, Catherine Barnacle, as well as myself, recommended on Thursday, and that is to move away from using the MCFRM model for sea level rise. I don't know if folks who were here on the committee recalled a couple years ago, but when MCFRM first came out, we thought it was the greatest thing ever. News and evidence has come out contrary to that. So our recommendation to the commission on Thursday was just to use vaguer language in that particular part of the update and just say whatever the latest and best model is for the commission to use that to make their decisions. Right now, that looks like NOAA 2022. That's obviously going to change, but they're receiving a lot of pushback still. We urge them to accept the last of the public comments at the next April 4th meeting, discuss it, and then make a vote. But they could really use crack support still as they try to get through this. So I'm just here to urge you guys to support them. So thank you.
All right, thanks, RJ. Is there any other public comment? Public comment. What do you got, Rachel?
I don't know if this is public comment, but I wanted to piggyback on what RJ was saying. And I actually wanted more information about the concerns about the MCFRM and to understand if I'm missing something or if I'm aware of them. They were referred to repeatedly at the Conservation Commission hearing last Thursday. And I just want to make sure that I am understanding what the best model is right now and the pros and cons of all the existing models. Thanks.
All right, thank you. Any more public comment? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to the approval of the minutes for November 28th, 2003, January 9th, 2024, January 23, 2024, and February 13th, 2024. Okay, I'll take a motion either for each of these individually, if that's how you guys would like to do them, or if we feel like there are no comments in any of those sets of minutes, we can do them all at once.
They all look fine to me. I'll be glad to make a motion to approve them all.
Okay, Gary made a motion. I need a second.
Second.
Okay. Motion by Gary Beller, seconded by Doug Rose. All those in favor, Doug Rose,
Aye.
Gary Beller,
Aye.
Jen Carberg,
Aye.
Rachel Freeman,
Aye.
Sarah Boyce.
I for the ones I was there for.
Okay. Christy Kickham,
Aye.
Joanna Roach.
Aye, I'm gonna go with Sarah's line for the ones that I was there for.
Okay,
I think there was at least one that I wasn't.
okay, all right. The minutes are approved. Next up is Leah's turn approval of Crack's fourth quarter update for the select board. I assume we all checked it out in the packet. Go ahead, Leah.
Thanks, Peter. I'm gonna share my screen. All right, so I went over this at the end of last meeting, but we lost quorum, so here we go again. So this was from October to December of 2023. Highlights from the quarter. You guys started the outreach to property owners, best practice resilience. You wrote a support letter for the wetland regulations updates, produced an annual report, and then developed an outreach plan, and you were given multiple presentations by regional experts. Then this just goes into the public outreach regarding, social media posts, updating the website so it's more relevant, easy to navigate, and then working on developing some sort of informational brochure for real estate agents and home buyers. You developed a survey for homeowners associations, and at the next meeting, I'll present about that. But we had over 300 participants, which was great. Then I gave a presentation on an example presentation that I give to homeowner associations. We had a great presentation about dynamic DApps by Kurt Bosma from Woods Hole Group. And then Courtney Rocha from MVP came and looked through our CRP recommendations and recommended a couple that would be competitive for the grant, and that grant is actually open right now. Then we had a discussion with Daniel from Mass DEP about the letter that Crack wrote back in 2020 to DEP, and then he gave us updates about the proposed regulation updates that are out right now too, and those are available for public comment. And an offshore wind grant discussion with Sunny Daly. Then you all voted to submit an application. Vince gave an update about the harbor sediment transport study. I gave a presentation about the CZM grant. And then this is the end slide. There, to my knowledge, weren't any requests or recommendations from the select board during that time, but if you guys think else, you know, if something has come up that you remember back then, please let me know. And I will stop sharing. Looks like Doug has a hand up.
Let's go. Let's hear it, Doug.
As usual, Doug has his hands up. I had to mute my camera there for a second because my daughter's cat is just really insistent on my attention right now. Sorry. Just a reminder to Leah that if you want to just make a voiceover note on that social outreach thing, you could mention the fact that we generated over 93,000 impressions. Not that you need to change the slides or anything. Just I thought it would be a nice little tidbit to let them know we're keeping track. That's it.
And I had one minor thing on the slide where you're showing the wind turbines, and you said at the bottom, at the bottom bullet item said submitted one. Maybe you should say submitted a grant, so you should
Okay.
so you're clear on that.
I'll change that right now.
Do we have any other comments on this fourth quarter report? No other comments? Wait, Rachel, go ahead.
I think it looks great. I just think it's a lot of work, and I think you do a really nice job, and it's a great presentation. It's very accessible, so thank you.
And before we take a vote, are there any members of the public that have anything to say about the report? Okay, well, I'll take a motion to approve this report.
So moved.
Moved by Sarah Boyce. I'll take a second.
Second.
Second by Doug Rose. Okay, roll call vote.
Christie.
Christie, sorry. Okay, roll call vote. Doug Rose,
Aye.
Gary Beller,
Aye.
Jen Carberg,
Aye.
Rachel Freeman,
Bye.
Sarah Boyce,
Aye.
Christie Kickham,
Aye.
Joanna Roach.
Aye.
Okay, chair votes aye. All right, so discussion on ranking 2023, 2026 coastal resilience plan recommendations that have not been started. Okay, Leah.
Wait, which screen am I sharing now? Can you guys see this?
We see your entire computer screen.
Hold on. Let me move it over. Okay, so for the last couple meetings, we've been talking about this. So today, what we want to decide is where to put the bridge conversion at Folgers Marsh in this ranking. Are there any thoughts or from any of the committee members? I was looking at the different implementation years for the projects that are up right now. I would suggest moving it to right under the, either under the numerical modeling of CO2 breaching, so making it number 9, or making it number 10 and moving down the Mattocket erosion pilot project.
I don't know, yesterday, maybe some of you guys know, I've got a winter gig working for the Natural Resources Department, walking the beaches, looking for seed, and then reporting to Tara Riley what I find in our harbor. And yesterday, driving out to walk from Fargo Way out to Wallwinnet, as I went through that spot in Folgers Marsh on the road, even though it was, approaching low tide, the wind was so strong that there were waves coming out of not waves, but water splashing out of the marsh right there and washing over the road, and that was at low tide. So, Mattocket erosion project. When you say Mattocket erosion project, are we talking about there at Millie's Bridge, Leah? That's what we're talking about?
So the Mattocket erosion pilot project is, the area is basically from the public parking lot down to, I think, even past the bridge. So it's
Yeah.
a huge area.
Okay.
And yeah. So the Ames Ave Bridge, that part of that kind of goes with the Mattocket erosion.
So in my line of thinking of ranking these is, how much use and who uses it, and there's a lot of travel along Pulpus Road, but then we have people who want to go to the beach in Mattocket, and then the potential of the water washing through at Hither Creek. It's a tough call, it's a tough call. Anyway, I would say that one would be number 10, or that would be maybe number 10 or number 11. I don't know if I can put it any higher, but that's just what I think. And I'll take Jen Carberg.
All right, thanks, Pete. Sorry, I'm doing this on my phone, so it's not as reactive as I want it to be. I obviously have paid a lot of attention to this particular one, the Folgers Marsh one, and also really the Ames Avenue, and thinking about Mattocket Road. I think in my estimation, when I think of Folgers Road, when I think of the infrastructure pieces and what Pete was just saying he saw yesterday, we see this a lot where there's already impacts on that road in, storms like we're having now, and not necessarily massively high tides, depending on when you're going out. For me, I think this sits at or above where the Mattocket road raising and bridge conversion is. They're very, very similar projects, but I think the potential impacts of having a storm that breaches Pulpus Road at Folgers Marsh are higher than the impacts we might see at Mattocket Road right now. And as far as the access around the island, I think being extremely important. So I don't know, for me, when I look at this list, it seems to me that it should fall either, above or in concert with the Mattocket road raising, since they're such similar kinds of projects. And to me, it seems like the impact at Pulpus Road is a little bit stronger right now, but that's where I fall out on it. If it had been on the list of things to pick when we first started it, that's where I would have put the Pulpus Road conversion piece.
Thanks, Jen. Go ahead, Sarah.
Thank you. Yeah, so I think, my 2 cents on this is that we just have this full list with the Folgers Marsh as part of that list, like raising that timeline, because we've learned more information. It's, because for many different reasons, it's become kind of more time sensitive than to wait till 25 to start. However, I think we're gonna waste a lot of time nitpicking whether something should be number 3 or number 4 or number 6 or number 7, because I think just making this list is like, these are the things that we think are the highest priority, and like end it there, because we think it's the highest priority based on both ecology and vulnerability and public access and all these different things that we're thinking about. But in the next year, there's different funding sources and there's different partnerships happening. And there's so many different things that just looking at this list, somebody might be like, well, and I'm not saying I feel this way, but I'm just saying anyone who, whether it's an organization or the town or some interest group of homeowners, might look at this and say, I'm super interested in the Amos Avenue Bridge project. That's my personal thing. And even though it's number 7 on this list, might say, well, it's one of the top 10 things that CRAC thinks is really vital. So let's put our efforts there. So I don't think and maybe I'm out of line thinking this is the direction this was going in by thinking what has to be within that top 10. I think just saying these are the top projects we think need to be addressed in the more immediacy sort of like ends it for me there. I think if you want to have like a top 5 of the most important, but I think that what's number 1 versus number 5 is kind of irrelevant because it really depends on what funding sources are available and the groups that are available to create partnerships that really emphasize or will really like put them into the next phase of implementation.
So I think what you're saying, Sarah, is that a top 10 list is just an arbitrary number. These things are important, so it doesn't matter. We should just make it a top 11 list, or these are the top ones that we could come up with. These are the most important ones. And while Sarah was talking and Jen was talking, it made me think that that we may say that these are the top priority ones, and we're aiming to make number 1 happen first, but there may be funding sources that become available in situations that make number 2 and number 3 happen before number 1, because that's just the way it worked out. So, but I think that they're all, I agree with what Sarah says. They should just all be on the list. Go ahead, Sarah.
Yeah, just a quick follow-up with that. Yeah, I totally agree with your summary. I think all of these are super important, and it's really great to have this list. I don't mean to dismiss it. I just meant like, it's awesome to have this list. And to that point about funding sources, some of them are very specific. So like stormwater management, there's been a lot of particular funding for stormwater management. And so even though that's not number 1 on the list, if like the EPA comes up with a stormwater management specific grant again, then that's like, great, that's number 5 on our list, but that funding source is available. So that's just another plug for that. Thanks.
Thank you, Sarah. Joanna, go ahead.
I think just 2 comments. One is the sediment budget. So I'm not, and maybe this has been discussed and I didn't hear it or pay attention properly enough. Where are we with the town study on the sediment? Do we have it, or is this just a continuation of the same project?
Can you answer that, Leah?
Yeah, I can. So the sediment budget can't happen until the transport study and dredge plan is finished. And I think that finishes in the fall. So after that, then the sediment budget could happen.
Okay.
But they need to understand, the information about transport and where they would dredge and how much sediment may come out of those dredges to be able to come up with the sediment budget plan.
Okay. And then just to follow on Sarah talking about the stormwater management plan, I know that there is some grants being applied for within the DPW right now for looking at stormwater, not management, but measurement, right? So that they can be better informed about what is in the stormwater. So that is happening right now with a grant that Charles is applying for. And I think that's really important, but he's saying the same thing, that the management plan is outdated and actually is supposed to be updated every 10 years and we're behind. So I'm not sure that shouldn't move further up the list. Otherwise this is excellent. Thank you, Leah.
Okay, are there any other comments from committee members? Okay, what do we want to do here? Leah, do we have to take a vote on it?
Yeah, I think just to solidify it, that would be appropriate.
Okay, you're all done talking, right, Joanna? Okay, Doug?
Thanks, Chair. I agree with Sarah's comments and and particularly your summary, Peter. And so I would make a motion that we approve the list as our priorities without obsessively focusing on the specific order. So call these a list of bullet pointed priorities as opposed to a number 1, 2, 3. So how's that for a motion?
Yeah, it's fine. I guess what you're saying is get them done as we can. Prioritize if we can. We know which ones we think are the most important, but yeah, I understand what you're saying. Okay, so do we have a second on Doug's motion?
Second,
Second from Jen Carberg. Okay, roll call vote. Doug Rose,
Aye.
Gary Beller,
Aye.
Jen Carberg,
aye.
Rachel Freeman,
Aye.
Sarah Boyce,
Aye.
Christy Kickham,
Aye.
Joanna Roach,
Aye.
and the chair votes aye. Okay, there you go. We're breaking records with this agenda, that's for sure. Okay, number 6, discussion on, number 7, discussion on Nantucket and Mattocket Harbors Action Plan, Coastal Resilience section of the goals and recommendations matrix. So some of you were at the March 18th Harbor Plan update committee meeting where we helped that committee add to the issues and solutions. Excuse me. Okay, some of you were at that meeting and where we helped the Harbor Plan Committee work on the coastal resilience section of the issues and solutions matrix, and we ended on regulatory updates. And we hope to continue it here a bit, as much as time allows, I guess, and then the April 1st Harbor Plan Committee, the discussion will be continued. And I know seems like we've been meeting, fairly regularly every week, but to get this done, I think it's important. So whoever can attend that meeting, whether we have a quorum or not, that would help out. So, Sarah?
Thanks. So it's quicker to raise my actual hand. I was one of the people who attended, and it was really interesting to see that process of kind of going over these. One thing I just wanted to note, and now that we're within our crack group, or maybe it's a clarifying thing, discussion of this kind of went in a weird direction that I didn't expect, where there was a lot of discussion of what crack should do. Or that was my perception. And so I felt like it's really important for us to be at these meetings, or some representation of us, because it started to things started to get added to the list of keeping track of every single resiliency project on the coast, that would be our job. And I don't know, maybe I was misreading it, but I kind of got this feeling that they were starting to assign us a lot of things. And it wasn't the point of the meeting. And so maybe I was misreading it, but I just thought I am going to be able to go to the next one. So I almost was interested in other people who were able to attend that meeting, if I misread the situation, or if it was a little outside of what their actual purpose was. I guess it doesn't matter, as long as we know what our purpose is to kind of make sure that the two plans meld together.
I can kind of answer that for you, Sarah, since I am, a glutton for unpaid service of the town as the secretary of the Harbor Plan Committee. And I'm now doing the minutes. And in listening to that, I know where you're talking about in the discussion. And we're talking about knowing what's happening with the major property owners along the waterfront, the White Elephant and the yacht clubs and the Coast Guard and the Steamship Authority and the Boat Basin and Great Harbor Yacht Club, and wanting to know what their plans are. And then I know I made a comment later on about, being in contact with all the private property owners who have major coastal installations like piers or erosion control structures within the harbor. And then I think Linda Williams rang me in and said, we don't need to talk to every one of those people. But I think on the harbor plan, what we're trying to do is get as much in there as possible. We're trying to take what people said at the public input sessions and turn those into actual solutions within reason. So, yes, it seems like the Harbor Plan Committee at that meeting was loading up the crack with duties, but we're loading everybody up with duties. And when the plan is created, there'll be all the solutions to the issues. And we've kind of decided that what we'll do is we'll go through all of those solutions, and then, as with the 2009 plan, we will pick entities that will implement those solutions. So there'll be a section of the plan that CRAC will be in charge of. And I guarantee you it won't be nearly as much as the entire plan itself, but we won't necessarily be implementing it. We'll just be saying, okay, here's this thing, we have to review it. And then we make a recommendation to the select board to deal with it, or we make a recommendation to the Concom or maybe the Natural Resources Department. So does that make sense to you? Kind of what it is? Okay. Who else has a comment? Leah, go ahead.
Peter, I think that you should explain to the committee that, this is like the initial input, and then what you had told me about Urban Harbor going back and kind of rewriting it, and then.
All right, so all of this, if you scroll through the whole document, you can see the issues in the left-hand column, and then the right-hand column are all the potential solutions. And so Urban Harbors, before each meeting that we attend, has taken the input that we gathered at our public input sessions and the dozens of individual one-on-one interviews between UHI and people that were believed to be great voices for the harbor plan, stakeholders in the harbor. All of that public input is then being taken by Urban Harbors and put into potential solutions. So they are taking the liberty of writing into this right-hand column what they think the solutions are. Then they bring it back, then they bring it to us, and we continue on and we read it and go, oh no, that's crazy, get rid of that, strike that, but put this in. And so everything, like I said in the meeting at some point, nothing is a bad idea. So everything gets put in here. This is what I think, we should do this for this thing. And then they go back to Boston, or they're back in Boston, and they bring it down to what they think they heard from us, and we see it and we say, okay, this is great, and we cut that. So it's a refining process of information that came from the public to become the solutions for these issues. I talk too much. So does that make sense? Okay. Are you putting your hand up, Leah, or are you just like cracking your knuckles? Okay.
I was just gonna follow up on that too, that.
Okay, go ahead.
You'll have another after these get refined, I believe you'll have another opportunity to look back at them and give, one more time for commenting. Is that correct, Peter?
Yeah, because, if you look in your packet further down, Leah has put in the timeline for the harbor plan and how it's going to go. And, we should have the harbor plan draft ready in the springtime, sometime in the spring. And then there'll be public meetings throughout the summer to get people to comment on it and tell us all how crazy we are. And then there'll be a public hearing toward the end of the summer, and eventual adoption of the plan. Then, of course, the state has to sign off on it. and say, okay, this is a plan, this is good, it's real. And then an implementation committee will be appointed, and that committee will then go ahead and decide who implements what and get going on it, and then follow up on it. And, you know, from the last plan in 2009, it took 5 years to implement the plan. And then 5 years later, or whatever, 10 years later, we were, you know, back here updating the plan. So there's oodles of chances to find the flaws, fix the mistakes, add things. So, okay. So we're on regulatory updates. Assuming we've all read all this, and does anybody have any additions to this, any ideas? If you don't, that's okay. You can attend the meeting where the harbor plan committee will be working on it, and do your additions then. But seeing as how we're all together here, and we've got an hour and 20 minutes, might as well.
You know, Peter,
Go ahead, Gary.
my general comment, I attended the meeting as well. And the reason I attended the meeting is that, you know, I was so surprised to find out there was the other committee thinking about what we have been through already with our long-term plan. And so when I attended the meeting, I was there to try to make sure that these folks weren't going to come up with something that was inconsistent with what we've already concluded. So I
Right.
look at our plan and we say our plan is good for somewhere between, you know, 10 and 70 years. And the harbor plan is 5 to 10 years. And so in theory, everything that the harbor plan should be doing and recommending and thinking about should be consistent with what we have concluded in less detail over the first 5 to 10 years of our long-term plan. And so, you know, when I hear that they're taking comments from the public, I just wanted to make sure, and since we have representatives like yourself and Leah and some of our other committee members, that someone wasn't coming up with something that would be completely different than what our best recommendations have been and what our priorities have been with respect to that same period of time covered by both our plan and their plan. So that's why I was there at that meeting. I'm not likely to attend the second one because I think it's probably going to be the case that at some point they realize that they have to really dovetail with our plan that calls for certain steps to be taken in the first 5 to 10 years.
You're right, Gary. The intent is to sort of mesh the two plans so that there's no redundancy, but that when we come up on an issue that is coastal resilience related, that the solutions will help us and not hinder us.
Right.
So, you know, there are certainly a lot of people who gave public comment who are aware of the CRP, but they made comments anyway. You know, the urban harbors, it's not their first rodeo. They do harbor plans for lots of communities, coastal communities in the state. So they're gonna point out stuff and say, well, you already have this in your coastal resilience plan. And you're right, you're very right about saying that the harbor plan has to take the slice of the coastal resiliency plan that's in the next 10 years and make that work, and then ignore everything that's coming up because it doesn't matter, because there'll be an update of the plan then. So you're right, Gary.
Right, thank you.
Do we have anyone else who wants to comment? Okay. We don't have any comments, Leah. What's our next move?
Do we not have any comments for, I mean, there's more, that's just the regulatory section.
When we're asking for comments, we're asking for people to add potential solutions to the right-hand column. And those solutions will be considered by the Harbor Plan Committee as well as Urban Harbors, and then refined if they need to be, or rejected or whatever. So whatever you think. Okay, Jen, go ahead.
Thanks, Pete. I wasn't able to make the meeting because I had to go off island for work, and I've been starting to dig into this, but there's a lot here to make my way through. So my first question, I think I know the answer to this, is if I have things I want to add here, I can reach out to the Harbor Plan Committee and submit it independently. So that was kind of my first question. And like I said, I'm on my phone today, so I can't pull up the document and read through it while we're doing this. But one of the things that jumped out to me on the screen here as far as policy was the town taking over flooded areas. It's not up here right now, it was down here somewhere. Implement policy for the town to take over flooded areas and help people move. And as far as the language we've been using with crack, one of our priorities, one of our priorities is, putting together that study and relocation plan, which I think is probably better policy wording than the town taking over flooded areas. We don't know what, when the town actually does that analysis and what a relocation plan looks like, who's going to take over areas, where that ownership is, what that relocation looks like. So I think it would be good just here to reinforce something we're already working on in crack, and that's that, priority that town will hire someone to do a relocation plan.
And so the way I see it is in the harbor plan, there'd be a reference made to a page number and a heading in the CRP. Write whatever words you want, and then say, but in the coastal resilience plan on page 35 in recommendation number 13, so that we have this covered. And then obviously there's a department or a person within the town that's gonna work on that. But I hear what you're saying. Go ahead, Sarah.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah,
Did-
I'm sorry.
did
If
you wanna
Jen's
say
not
something?
done, finish
Sorry, Sarah.
Jen. Yeah.
Jen, did you have a follow-up, Jen?
Just a real quick follow-up, Pete. Thanks. I really appreciate what you're saying. I think that just highlights the importance of making sure that the wording in the harbor action plan matches the wording in these other plans. So, I don't want the wording in the harbor action plan to say this recommendation is for the town to take over flooded areas, because that's not necessarily what our recommendation is going to be done once we're finished with the work that, we're hoping the town's going to do. So it's just an encouragement, I guess, to make sure that there aren't suggestions coming out of the harbor action plan that maybe would be contrary or would make it really difficult. This one's going to be a tricky one to put into place, might make it difficult for us or the town to implement a relocation plan if people think the town's just coming for their property.
So for this one, put those thoughts down and send them in an email to Kim Starbuck, and try it however you want to word it, and make her understand that you don't want the harbor plan to dilute the work of what the CRP has done. You want them to strengthen it, but you want it to reflect what we've already done, so that people understand that crack is on it. We've already covered this ground. So this mention will be just a reference to the CRP, which is already doing it. Go ahead, Leah.
Thanks, Peter. I would just recommend, if you guys have comments, you can email them to me and I'll compile them. And then I'll be attending the meeting on Monday, so I can read them during that time as well.
And I'll
Just
do
so that they're all in one place.
Okay. All right, go ahead, Sarah.
Thank you. My comment sort of dovetails or piggybacks off Jen's, because I was, kind of that one in particular that Jen pointed out, was something that I was like, the town taking over flooded areas, or once again, language that we don't use. And so I went back to look at what the top of the heading was, because I wanted to know where these comments came from. And it's a combination of all the different listening meetings they did. And so community, things that rose to the surface within the community, but also from the Harbor Plan Committee. And so I guess what I am kind of thinking about and trying to take away is that some of these comments are things that the community has said, but aren't necessarily like what the committee is recommending. And so I guess obviously at a later stage document that we're looking at, we'll see what is put together, what's taken out of all these. But I think I would just, kind of continue to reiterate for each of the kind of different, 1 through whatever, how many recommendations there are, to make sure, once again, that the language is appropriate. It points to the CRP document because so much has gone into that. Obviously how all the different areas of expertise and all the things that we've kind of hemmed and hawed over. But I also think, obviously in this document, we can see the track changes is from us. But I think that in the meeting, when things are added and subtracted to and all this stuff, it's like, I think it's really important to know which comments come from the CRP and the crack committee, because as you said, Pete, it's like we've already gone over, and Gary said this too, like we've already gone over some of these things in such great detail that I think it's where that advisory committee piece, like really the benefit comes from. And so I want to just make sure our comments are weighted in that way, I guess, because anyway, so moving forward, I think just being aware of that. And I appreciate, Leah, you really kind of pulling it all together so it's kind of a cohesive message from the crack committee.
Okay, that's great, Sarah. And write those thoughts down and send them to Leah so that she can make that a bullet item when she's talking to the Harbor Plan Committee next week. And I'll do my level best to try and remember what you said. I'm getting the sense of what you're saying and also what Jen's saying into a way that I'll respond at the meeting. Rachel, go ahead.
Thank you, Peter. I am continuing to search for the right arena to put language that is not a local, well, that maybe is local language, but I am acknowledging conflicts with DEP in terms of regulations on living with water and coastal resiliency measures that might include building berms or berms with hard infrastructure, things like that. And I'm recognizing that it is probably not in our wetland regulations, again, because that would be in conflict with the state regulations in terms of leniency. But is that the type of thing that should be contemplated in this document as we're doing a little bit of futuring here?
A lot of the within the solutions, there's solutions that the public helps the committee come up with, and then are put in as recommendations. So nothing in the harbor plan is regulatory. It's a recommendation that we're trying to get whatever entity to put into to make reality. So yes, absolutely, it belongs in there because one thing Dave Franzuto on the committee said at our last meeting was that once you get it in those solutions, then it's an idea that doesn't go away. It's a statement of that's been distilled down from public comment and to the committee and to UHI, something that this is what the community wants to do, and we're saying, okay, we recommend that the land bank or the NRD or the DPW or whoever, or they team up to make this happen. So what I'm saying is it becomes immortalized in the plan, and anything in the plan, in the recommendations, is something that we all wanted to do. So absolutely, you're correct about that.
Okay, thank you. I think I'll probably put something together and send it to Leah.
Yeah, definitely.
Thank you.
As clearly as you can.
Yep.
Go ahead, Christy.
Yeah, maybe a comment or a question for either Leah or Peter. And maybe a word of caution. I'm just, the more we interject sort of crack items into the harbor action plan, does that sort of muddy implementation responsibilities a little bit? Trying to think if there's some way to keep, maybe it is good that both plans are very separate, but that there is obviously, and this seems like it's part of what it is, coordination for just the harbor, excuse me, the harbor side of it. But I just want to make sure that implementation and which committee's duty these items are doesn't get muddy by making one document with a combination of both committees' items, if that makes sense.
It makes sense. Given that the CRP already exists, the harbor plan is a fluid document that began in 1993 and then updated in 2009, and now here we are updating in 2024. I'm fairly certain that the harbor plan is going to cede to the CRP and basically point to what the CRP recommends for implementation of that recommendation that's being referenced in the harbor plan. So I don't think that anything that we add to the harbor plan that then points back to the CRP is going to get diluted and lessened in priority or importance. And I don't know if I'm making sense, but go ahead, Leah.
Yeah, I would agree with Peter, and I think if there is, redundancy within the plan, within both plans, I don't think that's a bad thing. I think it's actually pretty beneficial because it's two plans saying, this one project should happen. I think when it comes to the recommendations or the strategies, whatever you want to say, when it comes to the different champions doing those, that they should be cohesive. So for example, if there's in the harbor plan, if it's saying there should be a retreat and relocation plan, this organization should spearhead it. That organization should be the same one that's listed in the CRP table. So I think when it comes to that point, Crack and myself should make sure that that is in line.
And I want to say that, there were a lot of people at our public input sessions, both in June, in-person ones, and then the one in August where we had the Great Harbor Yacht Club in the morning and the Admiralty Club in the afternoon. There were a lot of people at those meetings who were having several epiphanies at once. They were discovering the harbor plan. They were also discovering that there was actually a coastal resilience plan that existed. And as they made their comments about what they thought should go into the harbor plan, they may not have been aware that we'd already come up with it. So, and of course, Urban Harbors knows that we've already come up with it. And so they're going to look to our plan and say, okay, well, they've got it covered. And we might even just have an arrow in the harbor plan pointing to the CRP on this page. Okay, this is being handled here. And the harbor plan isn't going to have to say, pick someone to implement it, because it's already recommended in the harbor plan to be in the CRP to be carried out by a certain entity. So Doug, go ahead, and then Gary, I think you're about to put your hand up, but I'm not sure.
Yeah. Yep.
So let's go with Doug, and then I'll go to you.
Great. Thank you, Peter. I was just going to make the comment maybe to reinforce and echo a lot of what other people have been saying, but also just kind of double down on the value of referencing the CRP in depth. So some of the things that caught my eye in the harbor plan's notes here are maybe just a function of the fact that they're preliminary. They're sort of primitive, right? You're just taking a first whack at things on the right-hand column. And so I was reacting to, they picked up on one aspect of a much bigger issue that is more fleshed out in the CRP. So a cautionary note that I made in a couple of these was just, yeah, they mentioned buyouts, but buyouts is just one of 1,000 or dozen tools that are part of a holistic relocation plan. So I guess I kind of want to encourage the Harbor Action Team just to kind of keep going back and reading in depth what's in that CRP. I just refreshed my own memory on pages 106 through 110. There's a very good, very comprehensive overview of what a relocation program should look like. And it isn't just buyouts. It's a lot of different aspects. Together, they create an environment where relocation isn't going to be viewed, hopefully, as the town or some big brother coming in and taking my property. It's a program through which, by the end of the day, homeowners accept the idea that it's sometimes in their self-interest to move before a crisis occurs. And so I'm just giving a commercial message for the value of what's in the CRP. And for those of the CRAC members that haven't gone back and looked at the CRP recently, you should, because it's really, really good. And it's not to say we couldn't make it better, but there's a lot of really good stuff in there. One thing I am just very hypersensitive to in my own bias, and I wasn't part of CRAC when the CRP was finally approved, is I do think the word retreat is a loaded word. And I think it's likely to instill a lot of defensiveness on the part of property owners that someone is telling me I need to quote unquote retreat. And I do find relocation to be a much more sort of acceptable, less divisive word. So that'd just be a minor issue. That's all I got. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Doug. Yeah, Gary, go ahead.
What I was going to say is that I was a little confused because the committee, the people who are on the harbor plan committee, I thought their job is to come up with a harbor plan. I was not under the impression that they would have a continuing responsibility for implementing that in the same way that CRAC has a continuing responsibility for the implementation of the CRP. So am I correct? By the way, if they do have a responsibility, I mean, having more hands on deck is probably better as long as there's a coordination. But that was not my understanding that. And so when we talk about whether there's a question of who's going to take the responsibility of dealing with the enforcement or the supervision of these issues, I didn't think there's anyone from the harbor plan that is going to be continuing for the next 5 to 10 years to actually do the implementation the way it is our job on CRAC to see to the implementation of all of our recommendations and priorities. So I'm a little confused about that.
Okay, you're sort of half right. So, you know, the harbor plan committee, once the plan is created, we're sort of helping with implementation by creating these recommendations and suggesting it, you know, going through the plan at the end, once it's created, and coming up with the entities that will follow up on the recommendations to make them happen, to implement them. And then most likely there's been talk of making the Harbor and Shellfish Advisory Board the implementation committee, but I don't think that's going to happen because it's too much work to put on that board. So most likely option will be that a implementation committee will be created like there was for the 2009 plan. And then that committee will see through all the recommendations from the harbor plan committee and make sure that it's implemented. And there most likely will be members of the harbor plan committee, 1 or 2 on this implementation committee. And then there'll be a member from SHAB and probably a member from CRAC and probably some stakeholders from the harbor community, like you know, like boatyards and mooring rental people and scallopers and like that, people who are genuine stakeholders. So yes, the harbor plan committee will be involved with implementation, but only to a point. And then we'll be disbanded, and then the next committee will take over and put it through based on our recommendations. And having a member of our committee on that committee will help refresh their memories. So it won't be the harbor plan committee then moving forward and implementing it, because I think we're all going to be really tired of it. There'll be new people. Most likely the administrator will be Jeff Carlson from the Natural Resources Department. most likely Tara Riley, the shellfish biologist, will be sitting in on those meetings. So that's as much as I know on that, Gary, but you're half right on that.
Yeah.
You can sleep
But
at
as I
night.
said, Peter, even if there is a little bit overlap, it's better to have more hands on deck working on these issues than less, as long as there's the coordination is there, so we're not going in opposite directions. So,
Right.
Yep.
Okay, is there anybody else? Well, if there's nobody else, and we've had a good discussion on this, and I think you all, unless you put up your hand and say that you don't understand what we're looking for from you. You're shaking your head, Doug? You're shaking your head no? No, okay. So you've got some time between now and the April 1 meeting for the harbor plan. Put down your thoughts, send them to Leah. Leah will organize them, and then she will hopefully have them as bullet items for the April 1 meeting. And then I will also be able to convey what we were thinking of, which I think is that we don't want the harbor plan to lessen or soften up any of the recommendations that are within the CRP. We want the harbor plan to strengthen them, and everywhere possible, just point a finger at the CRP and say, this is already being handled in this place. And we don't need to reinvent, I hate this term, but we don't need to reinvent the wheel. We don't need to do anything because it's already been done. And so I'm getting people nodding so I can convey that to urban harbors and the harbor plan, that we want to make sure that they understand that we did the work and it's right there in the plan. And all they have to do is call up the PDF and go in the search function and type in the phrase, and they can see the work that was done and go, oh, okay, here, and then we can reference the page. So does that sound good to everybody? Yes? Okay. Leah?
Thanks, Peter. I'll send a follow-up email, but I'll need the recommendations probably by Thursday, so I can get them in the packet in time.
So I know that when we sign off the meeting, you're all going to get right to work on it. You're not going to get it done before lunch, and no big deal.
They have an
It's all
extra
fresh in your
hour.
mind. All right. So we will move on to Coast Snap installation update by Leah Hill, Coastal. Yeah, you know what she is.
Thanks, Peter. Share my screen once again. So last week.
Oh, wait, yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Let me just back up. For the last item number 7, were there any public comments on number 7? What we were just talking about? You have several members of the public here. Do you guys have anything to say? Okay, all quiet. Go ahead, Leah.
Okay, thanks, Peter. So last week I had some Woods Hole scientists come out, and then a couple of members from Woods Hole Sea Grant, and they gave us this Coast Snap cradle and sign. So basically what it is, it's at the end of Hummock Pond Road. So if you literally just drive all the way to the end, to the beach, you'll see this post. And what you do is you put your phone in this cradle right here, you take a picture of the shoreline, and then it gets uploaded to an app called My Coast. You don't need to download the app. If you just open your phone, you'll click, hit the QR code and click that, and you upload it. It's anonymous. And the pictures get compiled, and then they get, eventually it'll create a time lapse so you can see the shifting coastline, which is pretty cool. I also have some scientists from Woods Hole Institute that will be able to somehow figure out the volume of shifting sand, which is great too, so that we can get that information. And I do have right at this area here is one of the erosion monitoring stations, so that'll line up. So it's the picture is facing Cisco Beach, where there has been some significant erosion over the winter. So I urge you to go out there. If you're walking on the beach or going to see the sunset, to just take a picture. It takes literally maybe 30 seconds to complete it. And let your friends know as well, because the more pictures, the better.
So I got a
Happy-
question.
Sure.
Are you gonna put these in other, I'm guessing you put it at Cisco because there's a ton of people there, especially in the summertime, but there are other beaches you're gonna put it on? Different,
Hopefully. So this is kind of the pilot project. They had one free cradle left and they really wanted it on Nantucket. And it was actually kind of hard to find a spot because you want an area that has erosion, but the rate isn't so high that, you're gonna lose the post in a year or so. So this area, right now or has been for the last couple of years, relatively stable. But yeah, I would like to have another post, like maybe on the North Shore or something like that.
okay. Thanks, Leah. Go ahead, Christy.
I was gonna just make a comment. I think it's a brilliant idea. It's great. It's good advertisement. It's good intel, frequent intel. And yeah, I look forward to seeing these in other places. I think, something like Folgers Marsh, where, if that's coming up soon, would be a great location for one. And also to be mindful, I guess, for all of us, looking at the list we were just making some adjustments to, like Peter, for example, you're saying you saw some, washover on Pulpus Road. Great, great time to snap some photos. I guess we should all be mindful if we're anywhere near these locations and there's conditions to, snap the photos. But I do love this co-snap idea. It's great.
And I'll get to Jen in just a second. Christy made me think of something. Maybe one of our Thursday posts can be all about this, and then tell people if you're at any other place where you see sea level rise related action happening, and take a photo and send it to the Natural Resources Department. Or we can put that QR code in that post.
Yeah, I was just a quick follow-up. It's a great way to get the public sort of thinking and involved.
Thanks, Christy. Go ahead, Jen.
Thanks, Pete. Leah, I love this. I'm so glad that we have one of these on Nantucket now for all the reasons everyone's just said. I think it's such a great way to get people connected and sharing. And I agree with what Christy said as far as getting people out and taking pictures. And I think, and remind me after I finish this comment, but isn't there an app that people can submit photos through that I think you established, at least for storms? But the thing that I really wanted to say is that, a lot of the coastal places with erosion are private property. And speaking of one of the private property owners that has a lot of that land, if there's a site that's on, one of our properties, and we can find a way to collaborate with the town and get stations like this out on places that make sense, we'd be really open to doing that collaboration.
Leah.
Thanks for that offer, Jen. Yes, and the app is My Post. So if you are out during storm events, download the app. It's really easy to snap some pictures and submit a report to the state. And then if there isn't a storm event, like Peter, when you saw washover and stuff like that, email me those pictures and I'll compile them all and use those for social media, or if we're going for a grant for a specific area, pictures speak 1,000 words. So yeah, I had something else, but I forgot what I was going to say. So.
I think I know what you forgot. Jen asked, or Christy asked about an app, and what you were going to say was My Coast, right?
Yes, it's My Coast. And these pictures from CoSnap actually get uploaded to My Coast as well.
Okay, great. Are there any other comments on this from the committee? Do we have any public comments? Okay, public outreach ideas and strategies from committee members. This is both anything you want to suggest now that isn't on the agenda, maybe for future agendas. Just any ideas that come to mind. And if not, then we'll hopefully have an updated media scorecard summary by Doug Rose. Leah?
I remember what I was gonna say. Peter, you had mentioned about posting about this. On last Thursday, Florencia and Haley did a great video, which is on our Instagram and Facebook. So it's all about the co-snap and explaining, what it is and how to do it. So you can go on to the Natural Resources Instagram or Facebook and see that there.
Okay, great. Gary?
Thanks, Peter. I was very impressed that we were able to have a good session, either the last meeting or the meeting before, on the betterments and the coastal resiliency districts. And not only did it serve to help the members of the committee understand that far better than in the past, but members of the public could look at, either they attended or they can look at the videos, the YouTube stuff of the past meetings to see that. Another subject that we've talked about, and that is pretty high on our priority list, that when Leah showed our choices for the reprioritized projects, was the whole issue of Doug doesn't like to talk about retreat, but it's basically how we're going to deal with people that have to leave their waterside communities and have to give up their homes. And we did have, at some point in one of our earlier meetings, there was some material that was distributed to us that was very detailed and pretty complex. And I think it's a very important subject. The fact that we put it so high on our list of, it's in the 1 to 3 category, the top 3, one of our top 3 priorities, to talk about that. So I'd like you to think about which kind of an expert might be able to attend a future meeting that we have that can put a little bit of meat on those bones. In other words, to start giving us some ideas of how these programs work. Is it tax credits? Is it has to be funded by state grants or federal grants? It's going to be very important over the next 20 and 30 years, obviously, but we ought to start thinking about it as soon as we can get some expertise on the subject. And it's very complicated, so we need help on that.
Thank you, Gary. Anybody else? Okay. Do you have something for us, Doug?
Oh, I'm embarrassed to say I have not updated our numbers this week. I apologize.
No,
Sorry,
for
I
shame.
did
I'm
this.
gonna click the button and make it go away. No worries.
I did. Can I just add one other thing to maybe Gary's list? Well, first of all, I love Gary's suggestion. I think that would be a really good future topic and we could have a good long discussion about it. I think the other one was, I think Leah, I sent you a note and I'm just now reminding myself, there is some sort of CAD design video that shows a rendering of what downtown would look like based on NOAA projections for sea level rise. And it just occurs to me, I feel like we have a lot of really good sort of creative resources at our disposal that aren't always top of mind when, for instance, we're writing a grant application. And it just strikes me, as Leah says, a picture speaks 1,000 words. If we could just keep in mind of it's sort of the inventory of kind of amazing photographs and videos and other content that we have access to, that we should not be shy about using when they could be persuasive in a grant application. That was just a random thought there. That's all I got. Thank you.
Thanks, Doug. Gary?
I have one more different subject. I'd like to follow up on what RJ said at the beginning of our meeting. We've already put a letter in to the Conservation Commission about the buffer zone enhancement. And obviously it keeps getting tied up. I'm not sure what the Conservation Commission is waiting for and why they keep putting off making a decision on that. But once again, I'd like us to, RJ suggests, and if they need continuing prodding, we're the group that should be prodding them and saying, this is really important. We want you to strengthen the buffer zones. Yes, we'd like you to pass that addition. And so how do we do that? Do we have to go back, write a new letter and get the select board? They've already agreed to let us send the thing. We sent one, maybe we should send a second one to say in case you didn't get the first one.
We can certainly, Gary, we can certainly do that, and I can certainly speak with RJ to see if the letter is going to be different than what we've already sent. I'm getting that the resistance for them to take a vote is that there's all the people who are against the changes who are getting up and speaking, and that's holding them up because they want to get all that information and they're deliberating, and at least that's what I think. And I know some of those players that are acting against the revised regulations. So if there's something you can add to this, RJ, do you think that a letter from us would help? And if we did that, would the letter be different than what we send, or would we just send the same letter and say, come on, guys, we support you and blah, 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 or whatever?
Thank you, Chair Brace. So yes, I think the letter can be very similar to Rachel's point earlier, her questions earlier, and to Gary and the rest of you. I'm going to pass along to Leah right now. I just got my hands on the ILEX consultant letter from Catherine Barnacle that's detailing the issues with MCFRM, that model. So that's a privately funded model from Woods Hole Group that is not publicly available, although it was state funded, and there are just a lot of issues with it that are coming to light as the state tries to use it. So that would be the one change that would be specific in a new letter, other than supporting all the other things that this committee has already supported and been very vocal about supporting, just changing the regs from specifically using MCFRM, which I think the state is going to try to move away from here very soon as more things come out about it. Just moving away from that model to more general language on whatever is best available to the commission. Other than that, the letter can be almost identical to what you've already sent, just urging the commission and supporting the commission. And I suspect this will be something that the committee is going to have to do when the zoning regs come up for change. There's going to be pushback on those. This is something the committee is, you guys are going to have to get used to writing these letters. But yeah, I think the only change is going to be MCFRM. So I'm going to send that to Leah. Thank you.
Just so you're aware of our process, the land council can write a letter to anybody and say, hey, we like this. Hey, we hate this. You could write it today and send it and they could get it tomorrow. Whereas if the committee says, Peter, write this letter, I do my research and write the letter, but then I have to bring it back before the committee at the next meeting to have them say, yes, this is great. Then town administration has to look at it and basically give us permission to do our jobs as an advisory committee. So what if we write this letter and then the Concom goes ahead and does what it's got to do at the next meeting, whenever that is, and we've written a letter for nothing. So it's going to require a call for me to talk to Ian to see if the chairman of the Conservation Commission, to see how much longer they're going to go. Do we have time to write a letter? The last letter we turned in, he actually kept the public hearing open long enough so that he could get the letter in, and then here we are, and it's stayed open anyway. So just thinking the biggest bang for our buck and not wasting too much time. So Leah, wait, I'm going to go to Sarah. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. If Leah has a response to what you just said, I feel like she should go first.
Okay, Leah, go ahead.
Sarah, I would just caution the committee, if you are going to write a letter and have MCFRM, stated in there, the state is in their, their newest regulation update is guiding applicants to using MCFRM and going to resilientmass.gov. And that is the model that they're pointing to. So just wanted to let you all know that. RJ, I'll read your material and pass it on to the committee, but I would just say, err on the side of caution that before you make a decision, do all your research and read that. And that is the best available model we have right now. So, maybe the language says something like best available model, such as Massachusetts coastal flood risk model or something, but I'm not writing the regulations. Just want you guys to err on the side of caution.
And before we go to Sarah, I just want to say it seems so vague for the Concom to say, best available. That opens it up to a lot of interpretation. That means that the developer, whoever, they're gonna say, well, here's my best available. I think it's important that a standard is designated that we all go off of. And that's what I think. Go ahead, Sarah.
Thanks. Yeah, actually that was what my comment was about. I really appreciate RJ bringing that information to the table. I think when we first talked about it, I was personally really against using MCFRM because it's not publicly available. And it's sort of proprietary, like you have to buy into it. And I know that the state has made it more available. And so it became more widely used. I'm interested that the state is recommending everyone use it, because I think my concern in terms of recommending things, because like you said, the things that we recommend, or if it's in the Concom regulation, we know how long it takes to update those regulations. It's not like even putting something in the CRP is meant to be 10 years or more that, before it's revisited. We know that when was the last time the Concom regulations were updated, right? And so putting something that is not regularly updated in there as a source is not really an ideal. And so I know if the state wants us to use it for grants and whatever, then that's one thing. But I think we know that the NOAA data, while not less accurate, but less specialized to our state in particular, and especially to Nantucket, I think the NOAA work is open access, it's well vetted, and it's updated very regularly. So I agree with Peter, because we can't say, I don't like the use the best available, because it is very generalized. I would say maybe citing something like NOAA, and then with the caveat, with some kind of wording that's a caveat of if there's or check with this entity about what the best available currently on Nantucket is. Because we know that in science changes, there's new information. Even with the latest NOAA updates, it really changed those high scenarios into 2050, 2100. And so we adapt as we learn new information. And I would hate to, especially at the rate of Concom regulation change, I would hate to point to something that isn't applicable for the next 5 to 10 years. So I appreciate RJ bringing that up. And I think when we make future recommendations, or if we make, write letters and things, we have to be really careful about what we're pointing to, because while we're not a regulatory committee, regulatory committees are taking what we say seriously. And so I just want us to be mindful of that, I guess.
And yeah, Sarah said everything, but I wanted to add that the CRP is based on that, and so it will be then, if we send a letter saying, down with that and up with this, then we'll be kind of diluting the CRP by saying we're not really believing what we've already said is the standard. So I don't know. What's the mood of the committee? Given that I really don't know. RJ, do you know when the next Concom meeting is and how much longer the public hearing is going to go, do you think?
So the next meeting is scheduled for April 4th. So that would mean that Friday 29th would be the deadline for submission from this committee. They're likely going to discuss what's submitted from the public and from the committee. I know that NLWC will be there commenting as well, might even submit a letter. But likely there's going to be one more meeting after that where the vote occurs. That seemed to be the mood of the commission on Thursday. So April 4th will be when the last of people's opinions come in, positions on anything that should be changed or debated. And then the following meeting, which I believe is the 18th, April 18th, will be when the actual vote happens.
Leah,
Thanks, Peter. I would suggest that at the April 4th meeting, you just read the broad support letter that has already got, passed. You did give it to Concom, but just to reiterate that CRAC supports the updates broadly, I think that would probably be the best move.
and since we already got approval from that letter, then we could just go ahead and send it. I don't know. I might insert a line in there about the MCRFM. I don't know. Go ahead, Leah.
Peter, if you change it, then we're gonna have to get it accepted, or not accepted, but okayed by the select board. That's why I said
Okay.
if you just read what you already wrote, that's fine. Because if not, you're gonna have to right now vote to write a new letter, and then I don't think we'll have enough time to actually get it, have the committee read it, approve it, and then go through the select board process again.
Okay. Jen,
Thanks, Pete. I think Leah's suggestion makes, perfect sense. I think all this discussion about the NCRFM is really interesting and I want to learn more, but I'm not ready to make any kind of movement on it. I appreciate RJ bringing it up, but it's also the first time I've heard that there's this big controversy over it. So I want to learn more, but I don't think we're ready to kind of make any information or suggestions based on that. But I think what we said before that supports what the Concom's working on, I think if we reiterate that, if someone reads it out at the meeting, I think that would be really great and show our support.
thank you, Jen. How does that sound to the committee? If you want to just nod your head, we don't have to take a
Yeah.
vote. We'll put that on the agenda for the 4th. Redistribute the letter, and you guys can tell me how crazy I am, and then we'll take a vote and hopefully send the letter out. And between that now and then, I will talk to Ian and Ian Golding, the chair of the Conservation Commission, and try and get a read on how long he thinks the hearing is going to go. And I'll just report back to you guys on the 4th. I'm sorry, at our next meeting, which, what are we? We're April 8th is the next meeting, Leah?
April 9th, so it's my birthday, but it'll be after the hearing from Concom.
Right,
So,
but we
did I
could
hear
be,
you correctly that you want to rewrite a letter? I thought you were gonna just.
no,
read
I
okay.
was just gonna resend it
Okay,
so that everyone can make sure who doesn't have it way back down in their queue, that they can read it again, and then at the meeting, have people tell me that it's okay and we can send it, and then by then I will have talked to Ian and I'll know what's up.
you don't need the committee to okay it because they already voted on it.
It's just a reminder, that's all. This
Yeah,
is
I'll resend it to the committee,
okay, you
but
said,
you'll be able to read it at the April 4th meeting
right,
for Concom.
yeah. I'm not looking for anybody to make any changes. It's just a reminder, we did this, so. And I'll talk to Ian and find out where they are, and it could be that they end the public hearing on the 4th, and then it won't matter, but at least we'll be ready. Okay. Do we have any public comment on this discussion? Okay. Discussion on upcoming meeting dates and topics. Our next regular meeting is April 9th via Zoom. We also will convene, hopefully, enough of us at the April 1 Harbor Plan Committee meeting. I encourage all of us to get there. I'll be there for sure. Leo will be there. But other than that, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Gary, and then who was the second? Jen?
Sure.
Chris, okay. All right, roll call vote. Jen Carberg,
Aye.
Gary Beller,
Aye.
Rachel Freeman,
Aye.
Doug Rose,
Aye.
Steve Kickham,
Aye.
Sarah Boyce,
Aye.
Joanna Roach,
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Look at that, 27 minutes to go. So awesome.
Good meeting.
Very good
Good.
meeting.
And we got the minutes approved.
Yep. I would just say that if you guys, if we do get a quorum at the April 1st meeting for Harbor Plan, please don't jump off before the end of the meeting, because we didn't have enough to end our meeting. It's a minor clerical thing, but please stick around at the end so we can get a motion to adjourn our quorum at that meeting. All right, go eat.
Bye.
Bye, guys.